Thank you. Hi, as was stated, my name is Trevor Metzler. I am from Ohio, which I've been teasing people about considering it's apparently rivalry week here. I went to Ohio University, but I've got to support Ohio State in this situation. I got my undergraduate and master's in math at Ohio University, and then I did quite a bit of education while I was there. Then when I moved to Detroit, I started working at Southwest Economic Solutions, and the first thing we wanted to do was revamp some of our math curriculum. We've also done quite a few trainings, so that's what we're going to talk about here. Need to hide that.
Hello.
Hello. All right, so a lot of our clients are students who still need their high school diploma or GED. Now, if they go the high school diploma route, we still try to contextualize as much as possible, but it's going to have to be tailored toward what classes they still need based off of credit recovery. So this applies more to GED, CCRS, and NCCER, which we will talk about. I'm sure a lot of people already know about the GED fairly well, but just in case, GED stands for General Education Development. It is an alternative way for a person to earn a high school diploma. There are 4 subjects: math, science, social studies, RLA, which is reasoning with language arts / writing. Students can earn a free voucher by scoring a 145 or higher on the GED test. There have also been some pandemic-related changes to the GED that include online testing, in which case they have to score that 145 or higher in order to take the test virtually. Again, it's out of 200. So you need approximately a 73%, and then a student who scores a 165 to 174 is considered college ready, may be exempt for remedial non-credit college courses. A student who scores a 175 to 200, so a near perfect, would earn up to 10 college credits, and the GED testing services would endorse you and support you, but it is ultimately up to the college's discretion whether or not they consider you exempt for placement testing, remedial classes, and give you college credit. GPA scores cannot be translated into a GED score cannot be translated into a GPA. CCRS is an acronym for College and Career Readiness Standards. It was created kind of along with Common Core so that adult education kind of followed the same standards, same core standards as the Common Core that's used for K through 12 education. And it is used to create a bridge between adult education and post-secondary education / entering into the workforce. CCRS standards are similar to the CCSS, the Common Core standards, and cover material from anywhere from real numbers to inequalities to statistics and probabilities. There are a few main focuses. One is focused to narrow and deepen instruction design, extensions from previous learning, and rigor can employ concepts to several perspectives. Now, I like some of this. I know, at least in my experience with teaching GED classes, you really don't get a lot of time with these students because these students are adults that could have family, children, multiple jobs. They could be caretakers. They could have transportation difficulties. They could have connectivity difficulties when it comes to learning virtually. And particularly students with disabilities were kind of got a bad deal with the pandemic because everything turned virtual, and it can be hard for people with certain disabilities to focus on virtual instruction. I do, however, like the narrow and deepen instruction. If you have the time with these students, sometimes it's you really just try to get them the basics down to pass the GED, or give them enough that they can hit that 145. It is nice when you can go deeper into these topics, because the deeper into the actual understanding, it's understanding versus procedural knowledge. Procedural knowledge, you can give them 10 questions that are very similar to the way they're worded on the GED. They can memorize the procedure, but maybe not necessarily understand the concepts. Whereas rigor, if you get into deeper instruction, you can achieve that rigorous education where they can take that concept and apply it to a setting that they haven't seen before. And this is important to me as somebody who's studied math a lot, that math isn't just about finding the correct answer to things, knowing your equations, getting the right answer. It's genuinely understanding these concepts and being able to take that knowledge and apply it to situations that you haven't seen before. And that's what you need to be able to do in life, right? Take past experiences and what you've learned and apply that to new situations. So as much as math does have, the concrete applied use, it can help you, if done properly, it can help you kind of change the way your mindset works when approaching a new situation. And the design, it's pretty standard that the idea is you're building off of previous knowledge, and it's rare that you see math not kind of follow steps. However, depending on the student, if you open up a GED book, you might not agree with the order things go in. I tend to skip around in the book and go in a particular order that I think better builds off of each topic. NCCER, so at Southwest Economic Solutions, a lot of us earned our certificates to be, our certifications to be instructors and proctors for NCCER. We also did MC3, but at least with our youth build programs across the nation and across the world, NCCER is becoming, very popular and kind of the go-to credential to earn. It was founded in 1996, and it works to build safe, productive, and sustainable workforce of craft professionals. So anyone who would be in our Youth Build program would they have their educational route if they need it, and then they have the option of either NCCER or MC3. MC3 is a multi-core or multi-craft core curriculum, so it's very similar. This particular one is a bit more rigorous, where it actually has proctored exams where you need to get a 70% or higher to pass and move on from that module. Whereas the MC3 is more of a completion. It's hitting a target number of hours, practicing with math, practicing with financial literacy, practicing with career readiness. So anyone who would do this program with us, they would get our core curriculum, and that has things like construction math, blueprint reading, career readiness, tool safety. It's got 8 modules in it. And then once they complete that, that is a prerequisite for earning level certifications. So after they earn their core curriculum, get the basics down of the math, blueprint reading, the safety, they can go into specific stackable credentials. So if they wanted to go into welding, they could complete training with a certified welder and earn their level 1, level 2, level 3, and so on. So the NCCER construction math, since that's what we're focusing on, includes topics like systems of measurement, decimals, fractions, and basic geometry. And this is basic geometry in the sense that we're talking about area, volume, surface area, perimeter, the Pythagorean theorem, bisecting angles, measuring angles. So it's not necessarily easy geometry, it's just fundamental geometry. We're not going to be doing, proofs or anything. So an example of some of these applied things that we're going to be doing with them is we would teach them about Pythagorean theorem. Go back a slide, and that is primarily used in math to find the hypotenuse. In other words, the long side of a right triangle. Right triangle meaning it has a right angle, also meaning it has a 90-degree angle. You say that 2 parts of it are orthogonal or perpendicular, and this comes up a lot in construction. So it has other uses. So one use would be, a common one is calculating rafter length. So if you think about putting a roof on a building, you know the height of the center beam, how high the attic is going to be. You know the run of the house. So you have to bisect, or in other words, cut the run in half, and you can create 2 right triangles there. And using the height of the top floor or the attic and using the bisected run, you have your A and B, and you can calculate C, which would be the rafter length, and then add on any overhang off of the building that you need. Another use that you don't see super often, at least when you're in high school, is actually using the Pythagorean theorem to check and see if you have a right angle. So for instance, if you're laying a foundation, pouring a concrete footer, it can even be used to check that you have a ladder set up safely. In construction, they commonly use what's called a 3-4-5 or a 6-8-10 triangle to check for a right degree. The idea being that, one, it's easy to remember, 3-4-5. But if we remember our formula, it's a squared plus b squared should equal c squared. So 4 squared is 16, 3 squared being 9. If you add 16 and 9 together, you get 25. 5 squared is 25. So you have a perfect right triangle. So a lot of people will have measuring instruments that have that 3-4-5, whether it be in inches or feet, to check if something to check if a footer or a foundation, or you're extending a deck onto your house and making sure that it has right degree angles to the house. And then you can also use the 6-8-10 triangle. The benefit is the longer the links, the more accurate you're going to be. You can also introduce calculating area in several ways, whether it be, the floor layout of a building. So some of the activities that we've come up with are using area and surface area to calculate the amount of drywall needed to cover a particular room. So this would be a hands-on activity. If we were virtual, we would drop off, measuring instruments to a participant's house, have them measure a room. For in person, we can go to a room in our building and have them measure it. So they get their practice with the measuring tape. Chances are they will have not, even lengths, so they get practice with decimals and fractions. And then they get practice calculating area in several ways where, you have to calculate the area of the walls that need drywall, and then calculate the area of individual sheets of drywall and how much drywall you need to cover that particular room. You can do the same thing with paint, where we'll have them estimate. Oh, my light just went on. There we go. We'll have them estimate how much paint is needed to cover a certain square footage of wall, then have them calculate the area of the wall, and then have them, you could even go as far as, the average price of a gallon of paint is this much. How much are you going to need to spend on paint to paint this wall? So this picture is and then you can do the same with carpet, tile, hardwood flooring after you've calculated the area of the floor. So what's nice about this is you can keep mixing it up. So in this picture, you see we have two different colors of paint going on here. So you would have to calculate the paint separately. We also have a door here. You would have to calculate the area of the door and subtract it out, which is a very common question on the GED. They'll give you an object within an object and ask you to find the area that is in between the objects. So you have to calculate the area of the larger object, calculate the area of the smaller object, and then remove the area of the smaller object from the whole thing. You have to do the same thing with the white paint and with these windows or glass doors. And then we have these skylights. So you have to take out the area of the skylight, but now we also have to consider the area of painting that indentation in the wall for the skylight. So it's going to make them practice with measuring tapes. It's going to make them practice a common GED question, practice with area, practice with decimals, practice with cost calculations. So it checks a lot of boxes for us. So the idea here is we're not going to be able to relate everything in the GED or everything in CCRS into the construction trade, but we're going to check off as many boxes as possible with each activity. So another one is using fractions and measurements. So a common measuring tape can be as exact as 1/32 of an inch. So a lot of our participants are scared of fractions. So one of the goals as a math instructor is to help alleviate that fear and show them that fractions are more tedious than they are difficult and scary. And I think people can, make their peace with something being tedious as long as they understand what they're doing. So things like if you have a picture you want to hang on a wall and you want it to be centered, you need to measure the length of that wall, measure the height of that wall, then measure how big your picture is and length and width, and figure out where you need to center it. And that is often going to use addition, subtraction, and division with measurements that include fractions, again, as small as a 32nd or 64th of an inch. Now, are you probably going to notice if a picture is off by 1/32 of an inch? Most likely not, but we want them to get that extra practice because that exactive measurement is important for other things. You could also have them calculate centering a window. So you see in the bottom picture, these windows aren't quite centered, but they are the same distance away from the edge of the wall. So we would have to calculate how far away each one from the wall is and mark the wall. Whereas in the top picture, we have 3 windows that are all equally spaced on that wall. So that would take a lot of work. You need to measure the wall, measure each window, calculate how far from each wall they need to be, how far apart each window needs to be. And then you could add in an extra step of, well, now we need to consider how much space just framing the window is going to take up, how much drywall is actually going to be between those windows. And not like we were saying, not everything is hands-on, but we can still relate a lot of things back to people's everyday lives, or even, you know, the administrative side of construction, such as comparing rates, costs, loans. So calculating interest is going to be important in life if you ever need to take out a personal loan or a business loan. And it is something that is covered on the GED and CCRS. So an example, I kind of cheated with this one and stole this from a practice question on the GED, which is comparing costs or rates to introduce slope. So we can make a connection between, I shouldn't say sharing, I should say comparing hourly rates and the concept of slope. So in these 2 diagrams, there's 2 different ways of presenting the cost of lawn care. Now this is one example. It could be the cost of, you know, if you're doing work on a house and you need to outsource tile work, or you need to outsource electrical work, and you're comparing their hourly rates. Finding somebody's hourly rate is actually finding the slope. If you were to graph how much they make, kind of like this one on the right, as long as they have a constant amount that they get paid per hour and there are no discounts, which in the real world, you know, typically you buy in bulk, you get a discount. But assuming there are no discounts for larger amounts of work or larger amounts of things purchased, if you break it down into what is called a, you know, a basic unit, I'm blanking on the terminology I'm looking for, that is actually the slope. So the slope of this line, you can see for 6 hours, it cost them $120. But if you went down to the unit rate, that's the phrase I'm looking for, unit rate, it is $20 per 1 hour. That means the slope of this line would be 20. Because, and then we're going to remind students, the slope means rate of change. The rate of change is that for every hour they work, they earn an additional $20. And then it can be set up this way. You can still find slope using this kind of graph. And for some students, that can be confusing because they think of slope as being a line on a graph rather than set up in a table like this. But if they know that breaking something down into the unit rate or how much they make per hour is considered slope, then we can say, well, if they work 2 hours and earn $48 for those 2 hours of work, that means each hour they earn $24. Therefore, Jim's lawn service would be cheaper per hour than Susan's lawn care service. And then from there, you could ask them, given a particular task that's going to take X amount of hours, what is the difference in price between them? We can also introduce inequalities with cost. So inequalities is a subject for the GED, and we mentioned that it's also included in CCRS, that students really struggle with because it is often introduced as an abstract idea, and the solution can be presented in several different ways, such as on a number line, in interval form, and inequality form. And it's something that students really struggle to wrap their heads around. So putting some context to it, particularly a context that they're interested in, is going to be really important. So if they're interested in something in construction, or they're interested in going into some sort of sales, you can use inequalities to calculate, I want to make $600 this week. I'm working 40 hours. This is my hourly rate. I get an 8% commission. How much do I have to sell in order to hit my goal of the paycheck that I'm looking for? And they're going to use inequalities to figure out the minimum amount of sales they have to make. In the construction field, you could say something like, you need lumber shipped to a work site. Lumber is $12 per 2x4, that's 12 feet long. Shipping costs $50 to the work site, and you have $600 to work with. This is something that could come up in your construction life. This is phrased differently, but identical to questions they'll give you on the math portion of the GED. So you have to set up this equation that no matter how much lumber you're ordering, it's going to cost you $50 to ship it. Now, that's not always true. Sometimes shipping will go up with heavier loads, but usually there is a range for weight and bulk and how much it costs to ship it. So for the sake of this question, we're assuming no matter if they order 1 board or 600 boards, it's going to cost them $50 to get shipped. And it's going to cost them $12 per board. So we put an unknown because we don't know how many boards we're going to get. And that cost needs to be less than the $600 we have. Now, the advantage to putting that less than sign in there is if we end up with a fraction or decimal, the students know that they need to round down because they can't go above the price limit. And then some online tools. The main one I have used since I've been working here is a site called GeoGebra, and you can use it for virtual instruction as well as creating activities. So one of the activities I created was having the students build a plant shelf, and I made step-by-step instructions on how to create it with kind of mock blueprints. So these blueprints aren't exact, but because blueprints should be to scale, these aren't necessarily to scale, but it's a free program that's nice to use. And then I forgot to mention, you can use blueprint reading as well as a way to measure scales. That's something that comes up in your everyday life. If you have a recipe, you can use scales or proportions or ratios. If you have a recipe that you found online that feeds 5 people, but you're just making it for yourself or 2 people, you need to have the skills to adjust that recipe. Just like when you're blueprint reading, if it says 1/4 of an inch equals 6 feet, you need to be able to adjust everything so you know that everything is proportional. So here are some pictures. Again, when you're doing these hand-on projects, I would highly suggest doing a practice run. Just yourself or you and your coworkers before you try to do it with clients or students, or you are setting yourself up for failure and frustration. There's just some pictures of a practice run we did of that activity and our workspace, and then a picture of the final product. We obviously ended up having to move it away from the radiator once it started getting cold outside, so it didn't kill our plants or burn the apartment down. And then we recently did an attempt with 4 awesome young women that are a part of a program of ours called My Next Move. And we did still run into some hiccups that need adjusted, but that's going to happen. And that's a good thing for them to learn, that there is trial and error in construction. And this was their finished product. So unfortunately, only one student was able to make it to paint, so they didn't get to complete the paint job on it because it was their last day of the program. But that is now sitting in the office of our counseling branch in their break room, holding all their coffee and cleaning supplies. And then I actually need to back out of sharing my screen and do it again so that you can hear the audio of this video. So this is just a video about Youth Build. This is before my time, but it just gives you a nice overview of the connections we have with students and what they're going through. And let me know if you can't hear it.
I had a hard time, very hard time, getting a job because I have been to prison twice and I was on lifetime probation. I wasn't going to be able to move up, and I wanted to move up. I wanted to be able to.
Sorry, what was it?
The video isn't showing it. We can hear it, or at least I can hear it. Can everybody else hear it? I just can't see it.
I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it too.
I was able to see it.
Okay, then it's me. So keep going, Trevor. Apologize.
Okay, no problem.
To do something better, something more. And starting with Southwest Solutions and them helping me get my CDLs, and now I can do that. I need to take care of my family, and I can't do that selling drugs and worrying about going back to prison again. And my life is changing for the better, much better.
All of our programs are really integrated. We integrate case management, job placement, the training, the work readiness, and the financial coaching and education. It is so unique. There isn't anything like this. So it's really exciting to spread and to support a model that we know works and can be replicated.
In our program here at Southwest Solutions, I mean, we have different services that we can offer all of our clients. No matter what barrier you have, we're going to come up with a way to problem solve it and make sure you get connected to those resources.
A lot of the clients have never budgeted before. They've never thought about credit beyond a debt collector calling them. They may struggle with rent or housing issues. They may not have food stamps. They may need legal assistance with a suspended driver's license. Usually clients have to go to 3 separate offices. Under the Center for Working Families model, all those services, financial, employment, income supports, are all in-house. And that allows colleagues from each of those services to work together to ensure that a client has received all relevant services.
I became homeless, and that's when everything started going downhill for me. And Southwest Solution got me in a shelter. Being homeless is not easy. Trying to still stay focused and come do something Monday through Friday. It's not easy when you don't have the proper sleep, don't have the proper food, don't have the proper things that you need. Y'all don't know, I wanted to give up so many times because being homeless, and I'm young, I'm only 20 years old. I'm the only person I have. So it's kind of like giving up. It won't be nothing for me because I don't have nobody supporting me. So that's what really made me stay. It feels good, it do. It feels good to know that you can meet someone out here in this world and they're a group of or an organization that get together and they help you. Without y'all, I don't know where I'll be. I can still be sleeping outside this winter, but this December, when it get cold, I'm gonna have somewhere to stay.
She's found, stable housing. She's got her high school diploma. She's got her MC3 certification. She's working on getting more certifications. She's in a job, work experience, and she has plans to be a part of a union.
I'm CPR certified, I just took an asbestos training. I have my contractor/supervisor license. I didn't have none of this before I started, none of it.
It's really just building those relationships from day one as soon as they walk in the door. And that's the first step. That's pretty much half the battle, is to get them to come in. You know, you have an opportunity now to do something that you always wanted to do, or maybe something that you wanted to try that's new, and you may end up liking it. For example, Derek. He really just wanted to get his high school diploma, never had an interest in carpentry, but did like to build things, and now he loves carpentry. So he discovered that he loves this field of work.
I was only really there to get my high school completion done. That was really what my main focus at the moment was. But now that I got my trade in carpentry, I like it. And you feel good when people ask you what you do, and you be like, carpentry, they be, oh, okay, they be smiling and stuff, and make you feel good. Everybody from Youth Build still interacts with us and help us in the workforce. Like, if we need something, like we still get bus tickets. Like, that is so much of a help. Like, you can't do nothing if you can't even get there. It goes by fast, but we did more than we thought. And you're gonna see what you did. You're gonna feel good.
All right. Additionally, I think there are some pictures of some past students, their graduation, and after they've had their safety training and done their NCCER or their MC3 training, they get to work on remodeling a house and get that hands-on experience. So you can see them outside of one of the apartments or houses that they worked on. There's a picture of them at we have a graduation ceremony for participants that complete the program. And there's a picture of them receiving some of the educational support that we offer. Lastly, I just wanted to, I kind of flew through that a little bit, but we have time to look at GeoGebra a little bit. So this is kind of what GeoGebra looks like. This is called, you just type into Google GeoGebra Classic. It's one of the first things that comes up. So something that I just put together real quick for it was, say you are framing a window or putting a baseboard around a room, and you need to be able to bisect the angle to put that trim around the baseboard or put trim around a door. We can show how that's done using this, show that you need to bisect that angle. Now, a lot of these framings of doors, you'll see that they're kind of just on top of each other. A lot of them are at right degree angles, which makes it a lot easier because you can just set your table saw to a 45-degree angle. Some of them are a little more awkward angles, whether they be an acute being smaller than a 90-degree angle or obtuse being larger than a 90-degree angle. You need to be able to measure that angle, bisect the angle, and then from there we would make our cut. So bisecting this angle is approximately, the angle is a 125.4 degree angle. So bisecting it is going to be approximately 62.9. And after that, you have to subtract that 62.9 away from 90 degrees. So you would get approximately a about a 27-degree angle. You'd have to set your table saw at a 27-degree angle, cut your boards, and then they would fit together nicely and create that 125-degree angle. It also has, nice tools where you can, learn how to bisect that angle by hand if you don't have the, more sophisticated tools. So you can create lines, you can create line segments, you can plot points. So if we want to put a point at that intersection and then we want to measure that angle, You know, they tell you in school, and we'll learn through the program to measure an angle. We need to go in order there, get that angle. And then you would, generally speaking, use a mathematical compass, but you could just use a pencil and a piece of string, as long as you hold the string out at the same length every time you're making your marks. But we can use a compass here to bisect that angle. Sorry, I need to undo some of that. I messed some of that up. Well, I am messing myself up now. I'm putting myself on the spot and screwing it up. Ignore that for now. But what's nice is you can also clean a lot of this up. So when we were making the plant shelf, you know, you can let's get rid of some of this. Undo any mistakes that you make. Again, what is nice is you can create a line and then go here, and it makes a perpendicular or parallel line. It's also got a lot of extra special stuff that is unlikely that you'll need, but these are the nice ones. They'll give you a perfect perpendicular. It'll give you, so if we put move this around. I swear I'm making this look more complicated than it is because I'm on the spot. Make a parallel line. And then to clean it up, you would just put your points here. And then you can make a line segment and it just overlaps that. And then go through and right click on the excess stuff and you can get rid of it. And you can even go through and get rid of some of these labels. And pretend that that's a 2x4. You now have perfect right degree angles, perfect rectangle that you can call a 2x4. And then you can go in with text and label it with a measurement. Say that it's 12 feet long. So there are a lot of things that you can do with this. Again, I created all of these blueprints here with GeoGebra. So this was showing the base and showing that where these lines cross is where we need to center the legs so that it's forward a little bit. It has more backward support. We show a 2x4 that's getting divided into separate pieces or well, I guess this was a 2x6 that's being separated into 4 equal pieces that end up being these 4 shelves here. And then we can show we bisected a 2x4x12 into 2 6-foot pieces, and we had to make different angle cuts. So we made a 45-degree angle at the top here just because it looks nice. But if we were to cut the base at a 45-degree angle, it would lean at a not steep enough angle. It would take up too much space. It would come out too far from the wall. So we cut that at a 30-degree angle. I didn't include that picture, but there's a picture of them where they need to make that cut. So all this was just done using GeoGebra and then going through and labeling things, cleaning it up, getting rid of all the automatic labels that come up with it. You know, these 3 pictures didn't take too long. Making this plant shelf took some trial and error and some frustration and staring at the computer because there's a lot of little details in there that you have to go back over and a lot of things you have to hide. Trying to make all these lines parallel / perpendicular, it can be kind of tedious. But at that point, I'll say I am for questions. Maybe, oh goodness. So are there any questions?
GeoGebra website have?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the beginning of the question.
What other features does that website have?
It's so you can do graphing with it as well, although it's not what I would suggest for graphing. So the first thing I did here was I could clear all this, but let's just go somewhere else so that we don't see it. You can zoom in and out, so you can get a lot of things done. So like I did all the blueprints for that plant shelf in one spot. I would just zoom out and then zoom into different places. And then I would just have to take, there's probably a better way to do it, but I just took screenshots of the picture and cropped it and put it into the Word document. But we could also, you know, show axes and a grid with major lines. So you can use it for graphing, and you can come over here and type in equations of lines. And it'll graph that line for you. I mostly use it for geometry, but you can use it for that. A better website for graphing, in my opinion, would be Desmos. And it'll give you all kinds of things. And it gives you different colors for each line or equation that you type in. And then Desmos also has a lot of like activities that instructors have used. Now I've gone through to some of their activities and edited them, but creating online activity, it is nice because when you launch the activity, it'll give you a code, and your students, you just need a Google account to sign in, and they will give you nice activities. There's a lot of coding involved in it, and it's I'm not a coder by any means, so some of the activities, if you go in and even try to edit them, it can get kind of messy. It's but some of the already done ones are available for anyone to try once you've logged in, and once you launch it, it gives you a code for students to log on themselves. So you could do it virtually, you can do it in a classroom setting where the students might have Chromebooks, and if there are questions where they can participate, you can show everyone's answers, and it will give them randomized names. That way, if somebody gets it wrong or they're way off, nobody's embarrassed unless they tell people what random name they were given. It usually gives you a random deceased mathematician. So those are 2 programs that I've used a decent amount. But again, I typically just hide the grid here, hide the axes, and use this for setting up geometry questions. Because again, you can rely on, why is this not going away? No grid. You can rely on internet sources and other things to, steal from, to find questions that you want. But ultimately, if you really want to, drive a subject home and you have a specific question in mind, this is a good way to create that question, create a table that looks sophisticated, and put it onto a document for them.
Trevor, you have one question, and that one question is this site good for basic coordinate plane lessons?
I would say Desmos is really good for that. You can plot points, you can move the points, you can check for if you're doing systems of equations and trying to find answers, you could then plot the lines and see where they intersect to show the solution visually. So I personally wouldn't use GeoGebra for coordinate plane lessons, but Desmos is great for it. I used it all the time when I briefly taught high school.
Does Desmos, can you use it as an app, or is it too hard to do?
There is an app on the phone. It's not as user-friendly. There's also a GeoGebra app on the phone, but it is difficult. It's not as user-friendly. If you're using a touch screen, it's just harder to move things around and get them where you want them. Okay. But it is available.
Are there any other questions for Trevor?
Oh, sorry, I didn't know my video was turned off. I was talking with my hands that whole time and didn't know my camera was turned off.
Well, thank you very much, Trevor. That was awesome. Some very good information. So thanks to everyone that joined us, and we'll see you all at 3 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you much.